What is happening, everyone? Welcome back to G-Ball Vision. Today we're taking a deep dive into possibly the best Benchmade to ever hit the market. We have the Benchmade Freak, also known as the Benchmade Super Freak, coming in M4 tool steel. You have this nice coated drop point blade, dual thumb studs for deployment there. You have this little ramp with some jimping that locks you in beautifully on this G10 handle. It is layered G10 and has a cross-cut type pattern. And not only does it look great, but it functions very well too. G10 is some very, very durable stuff. And then we have some red aluminum standoffs and inner liners. We are featuring the Access Lock from Benchmade, their crossbar lock, the originators of the crossbar lock. And I have to say, without the refinement such as what Kaiser has done, the Benchmade Access Lock is very good. Had they come up with the crossbar lock and then refined it with the adjustability that Kaiser has done, that would have been incredible on their end. Instead, they decided to kind of stick with the same old routine in a sense and just kept going back to the same thing without more innovation. And, that stinks for Benchmade that other companies have surpassed them at this point in how well the crossbar lock is done. But, still an excellent job on their part for coming up with a lock that is just solid, it's fun to carry, and very strong. Let's go ahead and throw a couple of comparison knives up against this guy. We have the PM2 and the Para 3 here, going to be closer to the PM2 in its size. We have the Hogue Deca here, the version 2, and we'll go ahead and throw up the RSK here from Hogue and Doug Ritter. Very comparable sizes there. And then how about the Super Freak's little brother, the possible other candidate for best Benchmade ever. And then we have the AD 20.5 there, which is also going to be a fair comparison, but a touch small. We kind of did this in reverse order, but we'll go ahead and get a quick length on this guy here. We're going to be coming in just shy of 8.5 inches overall, and we're looking at about 3.5 inches of total blade, and then about 3 3/8 of cutting edge. And the other thing is, this knife is not very heavy. For as big of a knife as this is, it's not, extremely heavy. So we got 4.3, but this is, a little bit of a bigger knife and a little bit more, oomph to it. It's got a little bit thicker of a handle, especially compared to like the Bug Out or the 940. This has a much more substantial handle, and you're getting quite a bit of more blade and quite a bit taller of a blade as well. Now we do have a lanyard hole and a reversible pocket clip here. This is their split arrow pocket clip, Benchmade's one of their typical pocket clips that they use. And it is lower mounted, but it's a very usable pocket clip in its function. And it's aesthetically all right as well for being a lower mounted clip like it is. And the lanyard hole taking precedent over the pocket clip, which should never be the case. But it still looks good for what it is, and it functions even better. There's just plenty of room there to get this in and out of your pocket. And some people might be saying, well, how do you come to the conclusion that this is the best Benchmade ever? Well, it's just my It's just my observations and it's my own opinion, right? I have, I don't know, 6 or 7 Benchmades, and they are all great, well done knives. But it seems like this one is kind of the, as far as its size goes, as far as its material choices, the build quality, this whole knife in a nutshell, in my opinion, is the way to go. It's not overly heavy. It's a great full size knife. It's going to be comfortable for many, many people, no matter if you have medium to XL sized hands or maybe even a little bigger. You're going to have plenty of room on this handle. And then, like I said, there's plenty of blade length there to get pretty much anything you would need to get done with a folding knife or an EDC knife like this. The M4 is going to be ultra tough stuff. It's going to have good edge retention. The only place that it lacks is its corrosion resistance. But if you add in a coating, whether it be PVD, Cerakote, DLC, whatever the coating is, I believe this is a Cerakote finish on this guy here. And that is going to hold up extremely well, guys. The coatings that they're using nowadays is very, very hard to penetrate, very hard to mar up in any such way. You really would have to rub this, hit this up against something that's very hard and very sharp. And even then, you're going to have trouble getting through that finish. It is just ultra tough stuff. And what that means for a steel like M4 is it's ultra tough. It holds a good edge, lacks a little in the corrosion area, but with the coating, that takes care of the issue that you may have with the corrosion. That coating is going to prevent that. Now, you could experience some corrosion on the edge there. I live in a place, in a state where it could very well be possible to experience corrosion on M4, on bead blasted finishes, D2, anything that's got a bead blast on it. Steels that are susceptible to corrosion. We have high humidity here for several months out of the year, and it's not out of the norm to get a little bit of spotting on certain stuff. But with all that being said, I've never had any issues with the Super Freak here as far as corrosion. And this is a knife that I have had for quite some time, a couple of years at least. And I haven't really featured it a whole lot on the channel here. And I figured I would give it its due. I love the Super Freak. Like I said, it's so well-rounded in its size, its weight, its materials. Would I've preferred carbon fiber here? Maybe. That would be a nice touch. It would potentially make this a little bit of a lighter knife. I don't know how much difference in the weight that would make. Probably a little bit of a difference for sure. But there's something to be said about a knife that feels substantial and is more substantial in the hand than, say, the carbon fiber, bug out, or 940. They're very lightweight. They're nice knives. They're great knives. They're good to have if you are trying to be very lightweight on what you're carrying or very minimal. But as an all-around choice, the Adamas is a beast of a knife, and it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea because of how big of a knife that is. Now, although this is a bigger knife, this is a much more controllable size. The Adamas is a little bulkier, a little longer, and the bug out is quite a bit smaller. The 940 is quite a bit thinner and even a little smaller than the Super Freak here. So it just seems to me that this is kind of the knife that I would settle on as the best Benchmade. It's just a well oiled machine. Very well thought out from Benchmade. Could the spring strength be a little stronger on this guy? Yeah, it could be. It's not bad though at all on this guy. I do have one or two other Benchmades that have a little bit stronger springs in there. I don't know if that's kind of the luck of the draw on, what you do end up getting per different version, and, even different models. The one that came after this might have been a little weaker or a little stronger. It just, there's got to be variations in there. Probably not a whole lot of variation, but some. And this one kind of sits right in the middle. It's not light at all, but it's not, overly strong either. But considering this is a little bit older of a crossbar knife, all that considered, it's pretty damn good. You can get a nice wind up on this thing. The disengagement is very nice. That blade is, and this is well broken in. That blade is going to go home as soon as you disengage it without any emphasis on, giving it a shake or anything. Just pulling them tabs down is enough to send it down home if it has a little bit of angle to it. Even almost straight up and down will send this guy home. And as far as the lock itself and the tolerances and the geometry, it's very well done. It's strong. The only question mark would be how long do those Omega springs hold up? And guys, I have probably 30 different crossbar locking knives at least from a ton of different companies, and I have yet to ever break an Axis lock spring. I haven't done it yet, and I have fiddled with them countless hours, all of them, and not a single issue with any of them. So I think that's more of an issue with if somebody has that happen, which I know it happens, but if that does happen, I think that's more of a basis on maybe the spring itself just wasn't treated properly type of a deal. Of course, over time, those springs being compressed and compressed and compressed over and over again, eventually they will wear and they will break someday. But it could be, thousands of open and closings. It could be tens of thousands. I don't know exactly. I know some people have said that theirs have broken, relatively quickly. And that's a, tall tale sign to me that the steel, the spring that was used was just not finished or done properly, because that should not happen that quickly. It should take a couple thousand, flicks and disengagements for those springs to break if properly treated. No issues though whatsoever with any of my crossbar locking knives, and no issues with any of my Benchmade knives. One thing I'm interested to see is, let's see what kind of blade stock and behind the edge we're getting here. So blade stock is not real thick. We're coming down around 105 thousandths up here close to the studs. And for behind the edge there, we'll just pick a random spot and get right up on that edge as close as we can. Looks like it's going to be about 15 thousandths or so in that particular spot. And that goes back to, guys, this was not designed, this was not built to be your slicer, right? That's not what this was built or designed for. This was built to kind of meet in the middle of a slicer and a hard user, so to speak, or a work knife. It's meant to cut that line. It's not meant to be your slicer, and it's not meant to be, a hard use cold steel 8010 either. It kind of sits somewhere in the middle, and that's evident by a little bit thinner of a blade stock, but a little bit thicker behind the edge. And 15 thousandths is not that thick. I mean, it is getting up there a little bit, but that's going to add, 105 thousandths or so, coming down to 15 thousandths with the M4. That combination, that's going to make this a very, very tough blade, and it's going to be a very tough edge as well. And then the edge retention is going to be there for you. M4 is a great steel. Even satin finished M4, is a very well done steel. I have some Spyderco M4 that is uncoated, and I've never had an issue with it. Yeah, I keep it maintained, and it's not something I'm on top of all the time, but there's been times where it's sat dry for months and has been fine. So I do try to keep oil on those kinds of steels, but doesn't always happen. But in this case, we don't have to worry about that so much. Just keep that edge cleaned up and oiled up if you can. But I think for the most part, you're going to be in pretty good shape. But that's really how I'm coming to the conclusion that this is kind of the Benchmade here, the best Benchmade. Now, I haven't handled every single Benchmade, of course, that there is. Like I said, these are my own opinions and conclusions based on what I've had, what I've seen. Of course, there might be cooler knives like the Crooked River or whatever you might want to say. But I think as an average, as a whole, the Super Freak is going to hit the spot for most people. And if you haven't tried a Super Freak, and maybe you even haven't had a Benchmade, this would be the first Benchmade I would recommend to you. You're still going to have a lighter weight knife, but you're going to be getting a full size knife. Yeah, it ain't bug out light, but what is? And just look at the difference between the two. The Super Freak is massive compared to the Bug Out in all ways. The Bug Out's a completely different design, though, too, and it's directed towards a completely different group or use case. So that's really how I'm coming up with this, guys. Feel free to let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree, or you don't care either way. I'd love to hear what you have to say. I don't really want to get into Benchmade's overpriced and all that sort of stuff. We know that they have had some very unappreciated raises in their pricing, and they have gone overboard. But we are just specifically talking about the design, the knife, and what it is in the Benchmade line of knives. We're not really talking about pricing and what they're doing now and all that sort of thing. This is just a deep dive and observation of the Super Freak. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, guys. Love to hear what you guys have to say as well. If you're new to the channel or you've been here before and you are not subscribed, hit that subscribe button down below the video. I would love to have you here. Otherwise, guys, I will catch you on the next one.